All right, let's go over our fastener section. So just a quick reminder, anytime you see a material drop down, if you click the plus sign, it'll take you to the section where you can, add, remove, or change the price of any material that's in that list. So for each type of fastener, you're going to look over here and it's going to tell you how many fasteners are needed for that specific type. So let's just go down the list and start with deck boards. We're going to need 1,548 deck boards for this deck. And the way that's calculated is very important, right? So if we scroll back up to our deck board section, if we look at our material for our deck boards, this section right here, the number of fasteners per joist, is used to calculate how many fasteners we need. So if you're using hidden fasteners, right, every time this deck board comes across a joist, how many fasteners are you going to be putting into that deck board and that joist? So for hidden fasteners, it'll be essentially 1. Unless if you're doing hidden fasteners every other joist, it will be 0.5, right? Because that way every joist is 0.5, meaning every 2 joists will give you 1 fastener. Or if you're putting face screws into your deck boards like this, right, that'll be 2 fasteners per joist. So that number will be 2. So that's how that's calculated. And so once again, we select what fasteners we want to use, and based on how many are in the box of fasteners, right? That's why it's important to put the number in our box of fasteners. It will tell you how many boxes you need. So for this case, if we scroll over, we're going to need 2 boxes of 880 to get our 1,548 deck board fasteners. Now our nail screws for our Simpson hardware, these are going to be like Tico nails or Tico screws. And these are going to be used for our joist hangers, our post bases, and hurricane ties. So based on how many hurricane ties and how many joist hangers and the type of joist hanger you're going to use, it'll calculate how many of these fasteners you need. And that's why it's important when you're looking at this, these joist hanger section, it'll tell you it's important to put how many fasteners you're going to be putting for each unit, right? Because that's how it's going to calculate how many fasteners you need. Okay, so select, what type of fasteners you want to use for that. Post base anchor bolts, right? Those are going to be these bolts, right? So how many anchor bolts are we going to need to attach our post bases? And this will basically be the number of posts you have, right? So for ledger fasteners, now a ledger fastener is going to be how are we fastening our ledger board to the house. So if this is our ledger board, you can see we're using about, in this example, there's probably 2 fasteners every 16 inches. So you can, depending on what you want your layout of your fasteners to be, you can just put that in right here. It's 2 fasteners every 16 inches. Based on the length of this deck, will tell you how many fasteners you need. And you can select, from timber screws, right, from ledger lock deck ledgers or carriage bolts, And once again, if you want to add fasteners or change the price, click this, right? You're going to find your ledger fasteners right here, and you can enter what fasteners you use or change the price right there. Railing post fasteners are going to be what we're using to attach our railing posts to our deck, right? So a lot of time those will be lags, a lot of time those will be carriage bolts. Sometimes people use timber screws or, whichever you decide to use, you select from this drop-down list. And once again, you put how many fasteners per post you want to do. Normally it's 2, and it'll calculate and tell you how many fasteners you need, right? And so if our ledger fasteners are the same as our railing post fasteners, it'll add them up together. So once again, if we chose 8-inch carriage bolts, not that you're going to use a carriage bolt for a ledger board, but if you did, you can see it says included with ledger fasteners right there. And so it'll tell you how many you need. That's it for this section.